Greetings, everybody, and welcome to this introduction to the Enneagram. My name is Simon Goland, and I'm delighted of your interest in the Enneagram, and I'm hoping to provide a bit of an overview and give you a sense of what the Enneagram is about. Before that, I'm going to take a couple of short minutes and just tell you about myself so that you have a bit of a context about me. I live in Canada. I am self-employed. My professional practice is a blend of executive coaching, education at the graduate level at several universities. I do organizational facilitation work, and I lead retreats, and all of it is focused on leadership development, learning organizations, and really awakened leaders and human beings. And um, when I encountered the Enneagram, it has been an incredible gift and an opportunity to deepen both my own life journey and the work I do with my clients and students and organizations. And so I'm deeply grateful for it. I'm also deeply grateful for those who have been and are my teachers and who have introduced me to the Enneagram. My beloved Alison Lee is the one who brought me into the world of the Enneagram first. A dear friend and a professional collaborator, Kira McDuffie, is what I call my personal Enneagram wise woman who taught me a lot. Raz Hudson is an amazing and well experienced teacher that teaches a lot in the Enneagram. And Roxanne Howe Murphy is another teacher and author, and I've learned and continue learning a lot from her. And I did the Deep Coaching certification program through the Deep Coaching Institute where I met her. And of course, there are many others. Those are the main ones who have been impactful in my own learning, and I'm deeply grateful for them. But really, this session is about the Enneagram. So let me share screen. I'll be running a few slides with some stories. We will have a little bit of an experience as well, and that will help us get a sense of what the Enneagram is all about. So here I am sharing my screen so that we can see a few slides. So Enneagram, a brief introduction. A funny little capture on the different types, and there are 9 of them, and we will get through understanding what those types are and what it is about. For those of you who already know a little bit of the Enneagram, it's great. If it's new for you, it's just as good. We often see, well, primarily we see this type of a symbol around the Enneagram. So there are 9 numbers. Sometimes they have kind of a word assigned to the type, and that used to be the older notation. It seems to be these days that we are moving away from the words to simply describing the numbers from 1 to 9. And while each word can give a flavor of what the type is about, it's too limiting. It's absolutely impossible to capture a type in one word, and even though it gives a flavor, it can be a little bit judgmental and it's very incomplete. So it seems like we're moving away from the words and simply numbers. Oftentimes it's called the Enneagram of personality, and so we see this word a lot, and there is value in really understanding what that is. Through the lens of the Enneagram, personality is what we say as to who we are. You know, I am a teacher, I am a parent, I am a student, I am this, but I'm not that. And these are my beliefs, and these are my judgments, and these are the things that I value a lot of. I am this, I am that. And all that becomes our personality. And I want to show you kind of a little visual depiction of how we look at it through the lens of the Enneagram. And I'm going to stop the screen sharing for a moment, and show you something visual. So I need to move my computer a little bit back, and I'm holding a blank page. And this is us. This is us when we were born. As children, we are pure, we are innocent, we are free, we are like a blank page. But then life begins to happen. You know, somebody says something that shuts us down, and somebody does something and it shuts us down again. And it may be a teacher, it may be a parent, it may be a sibling, on and on life goes. And with each one of those things, we become constricted and we contract and we create defense mechanism upon defense mechanism upon defense mechanism. And then this is how we go through life, and this is who we think we are. And it's not. Who we are, actually, the constricted state of who we think we are, this is in the Enneagram language, this is what we call personality. But there's something deeper than that. And I think all of us, or I'd say most of us, really want to come back to who we once upon a time were. This blank page, pure and free and open to the world. And in the language of the Enneagram, we call it essence. Who we are at our essence, at our core, rather than who we are as we were constricted by life happening and created a personality that defends us, operating in a very, very small, really subset of who we are at the core. So this is how we understand personality. Let me now go back to the screen sharing and we will continue. So history. The history of the Enneagram and how it evolved, in some ways, it's a bit of a mystery. We have several different versions and we might not know really where it started. This current version, I think one of the more prevalent teachings out there is that the Enneagram kind of started with George Gurdjieff, who was a mystic of the 19th century. He was born in a city called Kars, and these days it will be Turkey, close to the Silk Road. And so through that time, he was exposed to a lot of teachings, both of East and West traditions and practices and many schools of wisdom that existed at that time. And he was assimilating all the teachings and then that he has received. And then he started teaching, and he used to teach in Russia and Europe and the States. He had a very interesting claim. What he said is that we humans are really asleep to the full expression of our spirit and our being. And there are many external and internal forces that make it so. According to him, the good news were that awakening is actually possible as we develop our awareness and our attention, and we can connect to the essence of who we are rather than our personality of who we are in the constricted space. And he taught something that is called the fourth way. The reason it's called the fourth way is he looked at it as there were three different ways that he explored and has seen through the different teachings. The first way was the way of the fakir or the ascetic. And these are the people who trying to overcome the identification with the body. So kind of transcending the body. Then there was the way of the monks, and these are the devotional monastic paths, you know, Eastern Orthodox orders or Sufi dervishes. And for them, their whole practices were about connection to the heart center. And then, of course, there were paths that had the discipline focused on attention and understanding, such as Indian yogis and Zen monks. They were focused on cultivating the mind. So really, they were focused on the body, the belly center, the heart center, and the head center. And what Gurdjieff created is the fourth way, which was combining all three and creating a way of kind of growing and learning through attention to all three centers. After that, we enter Oscar Ichazo. And Oscar Ichazo was born in Bolivia, raised in Peru, and he was running a school called the Arica School in Chile. And he drew a lot from Gurdjieff, and he combined his understanding of the Enneagram with a lot of other ancient systems of human understanding, and of course, religion as well. So he brought in the elements of like the 7 deadly sins that align to 7 of the 9 elements of the Enneagram. So combined a lot of things and started teaching kind of an evolved, more comprehensive system. He also brought in elements that you will hear if you dive deeper into the Enneagram. So talking about the passions, fixations, virtues, holy ideas. So he started developing it into something more cohesive. From here, one of the people who studied with him was a Chilean psychiatrist, Claudia Naranjo. And Claudia Naranjo studied under Ichazo and expanded the angle of the Enneagram interpersonal stuff. So bringing a lot of kind of the more Western psychological theories of human development. And so this is where what started happening is the original, maybe more spiritual teachings that started combining with the more modern Western psychotherapy, psychological human development, started combining into one. Then Claudio Naranjo had a group of students that he taught for a long time. Quite a few of them were from California. And of course, we know that once something new gets to California, it gets to spread all over the world. Interestingly enough, some of the students of Claudia Naranjo were actually Jesuits. And the first written books, if we can call them books, about the Enneagram were written by Jesuits. And what happened is the Jesuits, as they were going on their missionary trips all over the world, they were looking for ways to deepen their self-awareness, to overcome their deadly sins. And so they were handwriting those little notebooks from the Enneagram teachings and giving it to people to their other monks who went traveling. And so the first published Enneagram book was actually by Robert Ochs and a few others. And then we encounter many of the more modern teachers like the late Don Riso, who was one of the people who brought a lot of wisdom and levels of development into the Enneagram, which I'll talk about in a moment. Russ Hudson, Beatrice Chestnut, Ellen Palmer, Hamid Ali, H.L. Almas. He also birthed or co-birthed the Diamond Heart approach, and Richard Rohr. So there are many other teachers, most of them are moderns, and this is how the Enneagram spread to the world. So we can see that the system is, it has deep historical roots. I mean, some of the things that Gurdjieff started with came from like the ancient Egypt and the Egyptian Brotherhood. The word itself, Enneagram, comes from Greek, where Ennea means 9 and gram means point. So a lot of ancient roots, evolution combined with Western human development, and here we have the Enneagram. One of the things that I sometimes hear is people say, well, I am resisting the Enneagram assessment because it will put me in a box. Well, here is the secret. We are already in a box. Each one of us is in a box of our own type. And there are 9 of them. And so, that blank open page that I showed earlier, this is in our pure, innocent, and free state. This is us being at home. And then life happens and we forget. We forget who we are at our essence. We forget what our home is. And so the Enneagram is a map that shows you 9 different paths to come home, because we forgot in 9 different ways. And so these are the 9 types. Each type is a very unique path of how to come home to who we are. And when we are not aware of it, when we are not aware of what our personality is doing and what the personality's structure of resistance is, we are already in a box. As one of my teacher, Kira, says, she has a beautiful way of saying that our primary home type is our primary unique prison that holds us captive. And these structures, i.e. these types that we are not aware of, that's our prison. So the Enneagram is actually a way out, because when we are not aware of it, we are looking at the reality of what's possible and who we are through a very narrow slice, because a lot of it is based on the early coping strategies that we developed when that blank page started getting crumpled. So we developed our adaptation strategies, we developed our personality, and we pay attention to very particular things. And so the Enneagram, understanding our type, understanding what it is, this is actually a way out of the prison of our personality, out of the prison of our type, to open up to a much wider, much more effective, impactful, and joyful way of going through life. So the Enneagram has a few principles. First is, it is a map. It's a map that shows us how we forgot who we are in one of 9 unique ways and how to come back home. And each one of us has a type that is our home type. And yet we all have all 9 types within us to different degrees, as which I hope you will continue learning about the Enneagram. And as you learn and practice, you will be able to get a sense within you of all the 9 different types and how they play out and express themselves throughout our human experience. And yet one of them is the home type. So not only the Enneagram is a map, but it's also a psycho-spiritual map. It has spiritual origins, which means if you're after awakening, enlightenment, deep state of presence, you can use this map for it. You might not be, that's also fine. You might be simply, in quotes, after kind of personal, professional development, deepening your awareness, deepening your performance at work or at home. So it's a psycho-spiritual map, and psycho comes from psychology, right? So it's the psychological development, and that's just as good. One of the things that Don Risso and Ross Hudson introduced is, it's the element, if you think about this map of this drawing that you see in the top right corner, it's actually 3-dimensional, because for each type, there are also level of developments. There are 9 of them, from like very downright psychotic, narcissistic, self-observed, all the way to like fully present, open and awake. So not only the Enneagram shows you your type and where you are on the map, and for each type, there are incredible strengths and gifts and beauties that that type brings. And each type also has things that get in their way. So not only it has that, but it also shows you the levels of development. So you can look at it and say, okay, so I am at home as type this or that. What's my direction of development? Like if I simply want to develop myself as a better leader, what kind of things do I need to pay attention to? And what are the practices that I can engage with to make it happen? And for me personally, it's been an incredibly powerful orientation and map. And I've been in the field of personal and professional development and inner work probably for about 2.5 decades. And when I stumbled upon the Enneagram, I realized how all the different things and frameworks and approaches that and practices that I've learned, that they go from Western to yoga, Qigong, meditation, Tai Chi, and many other things. They all fit within the map. I have used for all of them to help me continue my self-awareness and self-development and continue my journey towards awakening. So these are not exclusive. The Enneagram is completely non-denominational. It doesn't matter what religion or belief you are, the work fits in. So this is the flavor. This is what the Enneagram is. Let's go into a little bit more details and a few other specific elements. So let's take a moment and reflect on these questions. You can reflect silently. You can jot a few things down. You know, you at your best, whether it's at work or at home. And how do you feel when you are at your best? And how often are you with your best self? And then when you are at your less than best self, not so best. And what is that like? How do you feel when you are living out your not so best self? And how often are you there? Think about those two ways of showing up in life, again, personally or professionally. And so once you find your home type, and as you begin to dig deeper into the Enneagram as a map pinpoints with an incredible accuracy your ways of being when you're at your best self and when you're at your less than, not such a best self. And all of it is an inside job. The Enneagram is really work of self-inquiry and self-awareness that requires a lot of openness and authenticity and integrity to look ourselves in the mirror and say, yep, I'm that when I'm at my best. When I'm present and open and joyful, this is who shows up in the room. But when I'm under stress, when I was triggered, when one of my buttons has been pushed, I can show up as that one, which is kind of not all that great. I might not like myself as much. I might feel shame or guilt. I might get frustrated. I might withdraw. So we show up on a spectrum of ways of being. And then, of course, the question is, well, why do we care? Why is that important? It's important because Viktor Frankl was right when he said that between the stimulus and the response, there is a space and a pause. And in that pause lies our power and freedom. And so when we are able to self-observe and notice how we show up in different situations and not respond immediately and automatically, but take that little pause and notice what's going on and course correct and get present and shift our way of beings, that's where we grow. That's where we expand. That's where we become more impactful and aware and engaging and loving and compassionate. And that's where our human freedom lies. And the Enneagram helps us through the understanding of our home type. The Enneagram helps us to really zoom in on what do I need to pay attention to. One of the things we do, and that kind of comes from the original work of Gurdjieff, is we talk about the fact that we have 3 centers of intelligence, and the latest neurophysiological research on the body confirms that we actually have more than one brain. We have 3. And so we have the instinctive center, which is the belly center. And there are 3 types of the Enneagram that's their home. We have the feeling center, which is the heart, and we have 3 Enneagram types that sit there. And then we have the thinking center, which is the head, and we have 3 types there. A lot of things in the Enneagram are done in 3s. So let's take a few moments, and I will guide you through a little presencing exercise. So I hope you're sitting somewhere and not like driving or running or walking. So sit comfortably, and I invite you to close your eyes and take a few nice deep breaths in and out through the nose. Deep inhale, full slow exhale. Let's do 3 of those together. And now let your body breathe at its own pace, in and out through the nose. Keep your eyes closed. And simply bring all your attention and your awareness to your belly. Kind of about an inch and a half below the navel and into the center of the body. Bring all your awareness there. And simply notice any kinds of sensations that you might be experiencing. It's about noticing, observing, with no preferential treatment of, I like the spaciousness and warmth, I don't like the tightness or the pain. Simply noticing and observing. And then move your awareness to kind of the heart area behind the sternum, upper chest in the center. Again, as a neutral observer, simply notice any emotions you might be experiencing. And then move your awareness up to the head, kind of in the center, and simply notice any of the thoughts that might be running through you right now. And then another nice deep breath, full inhale, full exhale, and then open your eyes and join us. So we've just touched on the three centers, the instinctive, i.e. body center, heart center, and head center. And if, depending on what your experience was, you know, if your type sits in the body center, then we often tend, and I'm saying we because my type sits in the body center, we tend to filter the world through the intelligence of our kinesthetic sense of movement and space, position, physical presence, kind of gut instincts. Oh, it doesn't sense right, it's this and that. So this is our primary sensor of interacting with the world. We often use a lot of power and energy to get what we want, and we divide strategies that assure our here-ness, like our presence in the world. And when we don't experience it, then the three types that sit in the body center will react with a variety of like irritation, frustration, or in the stronger sense with anger and rage, agitation, impatience. So it might feel that this area is familiar for you, and then it's possible that your home type sits in the body center. This is just giving you a very, very high level flavor of how these three centers play out, because it's an important distinction in the Enneagram to know which center is our primary one. Now, if you're in the heart center, if you are one of the three Enneagram types that sit in the heart center, then you will be perceiving the world through the attention of like relating and connecting and bonding and feeling people and being felt by them. You'll be quite attuned to the different moods and states of other people. The three types in here depend quite a bit on recognition and admiration of others. And when a heart center type doesn't experience this quality, this type of connection, then oftentimes there will be reactions of sadness and distress and loneliness, shame. That's what happens with the heart types. And if you might be a type that sits in the head center, then the types here, they relate to the world through the power of their intellect. And the whole idea is to minimize fear and minimize potentially painful situations in advance. And so there are a lot of skills and capacity for analyzing, envisioning, imagining, planning, lots of strong skills in that area. And when a type that is part of the head center triad, when they don't experience those qualities, then they lose connectedness with themselves. And so oftentimes there will be like a, freeze or flight type of reaction. Again, this is very high level flavor of how the three centers play out. And of course, there is a lot more richness and depth in them. The four numbers of the Enneagram, kind of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, even though it's not apocalypse. We all have all 9 types within us. One of them will be our home type. So this example is my home type is a type 8. And so there are 4 numbers that are really important and help me gain an even deeper understanding of myself. So each type has wings, and we can think of wing as our second in command or secondary strategy to deal with the world. And oftentimes I'll call that wing into support. I'm a type 8, so you see on the Enneagram, the 2 numbers that are close to me are 9 or 7. And in my case, I know that 7 is my wing, which means the more I know about type 7, the more I understand how those secondary strategies play out in my ways of being in the world. Additionally, the Enneagram is really valuable in showing me, so What happens when I get more present and open to the world? In the Enneagram language, it's called growth or integration. And then I become more and more like type 2. The flip side of it is what happens for me when there is more and more stress in my life. And in the Enneagram language, we call it the direction of disintegration. So the more stress there is, the more I lose contact with my core, with my essence, and then the more I begin to look like type 5, which is my structure. And of course, each type has their own two wings and their direction of integration and direction of disintegration. And these are the all the inside lines and arrows, and it's unique for each type. And these are really for like useful for numbers to know. So this is very, very high level. And of course, the question is, well, now what? You know, you're curious, you're interested, you're cautiously optimistic. Wherever you're at, there is no shortage of ways of how to continue. I would recommend one of the next things to do is to do a self-assessment. And there are several free self-assessments. There is also a paid self-assessment from the Enneagram Institute called RETI, R-H-E-T-I, which stands for Riso Hudson Enneagram Type Indicator. Either one of them, they're very similar in nature. They will give you a sense of what your home type is. Now, there is no Enneagram assessment that will be 100% accurate. So what I recommend, if you want to continue that route, do a self-assessment and then find somebody who is an experienced Enneagram practitioner to debrief it with, because oftentimes there are situations when one type looks like another type. And also the Enneagram tries to assess your home type, i.e., where does your personality sit? And it's really hard to ask the personality to assess itself because it resists. And so that's why it's not always 100% accurate. But the debrief with an experienced person will really help you land on the correct home type. And the person will be able to help you contextualize, well, what does it mean? What are the beauties of the type? Like, where does the type shine the brightest? And what are the pitfalls? What are the things to be mindful of? How to start looking into where to develop? That's one way. There is also no shortage of wonderful books and various other programs, short or long, for those who want to get deeper into the Enneagram. Reading, podcasts, a lot is available these days. I personally think that a self-assessment and a debrief is a wonderful way to get started if you're interested in finding out what's next. So here we are. Welcome to the world of the Enneagram. I hope it was of value and interest for you, and I hope you will continue on this journey of really deep awakening and self-awareness and understanding who you are at your essence. And I'm Simon Goland, and I appreciate you taking the time to be with me on this little journey. Thank you.